This video is about setting custom margins. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Layout. I'm going to go over to the drop down arrow on Margins, which is on the left hand side. And in this area I can choose between a number of preset for margins, or I can choose custom. So I'm going to click on custom. And you'll notice this dialog box now allows you to set the margins for this particular document. The one thing I want you to keep in mind when you're setting margins is that your printer, when it's installed, can actually affect the way margins are represented when they print. So keep that in mind, that some printers do have pinch rollers on the sides or the top and the bottom. So they tend to take up a little bit more space, and therefore the margins have to be set to very specific sizes. But we can change the actual size of this, so I can take this down a little bit, but I'm going to take it down a little bit further than normal. I'm going to take it down to 0.3, and I'm going to do the same thing with the left side. And this will be 0.2, and we'll go down here and do the same thing. We'll say 3, and for the right side we'll say 0.4. Now there's also a gutter, and that gutter can be placed in as well between pages, and also the position of it, whether it's on the left side or the right side. If I were actually printing a book, then I would want to have maybe 4 pages on a single sheet of paper. Therefore, I could have a gutter area which would be used for the binding and the fold. So you would want to have that little extra bit of space so that you could actually have that in there. And this is what the gutter position and the gutter space is about. Now, we don't have to do that for this particular one, but I want you to know that's what it's for. A portrait view or landscape, once again, you get to decide what that particular orientation is for the page itself, and also is it for the entire document, or is it for just simply, maybe 1 or 2 pages. So we get to decide on that as well from this point forward, or perhaps we've broken the document down into 1 or 2 pages, or we can use the pages option as well. Now we can also set this as default should you be doing this all the time and using exactly the same margins. The time when you would change these margins, let's say as a default, would be if you had a logo and that logo already was pre-printed on the page, and you are just simply going to add content to that particular page. So you'd have to make allowances for the space that the logo already occupies. Now for some companies that logo is at the bottom of the page, some it's at the top of the page. It could even be the address or specific information of locations, like Trios, which is actually down the left hand side. So you would have to make an allowance for that. And that's what the margins actually are going to give you, the ability to isolate certain areas on your document. Now, we also have paper, and it's really important for printers that you decide what type of paper and also which particular tray it's going to be in, and whether or not your particular printer prints both sides, or you manually have to flip the paper and print again, or it's a different configuration entirely. In other words, different sizes, and you can pick and choose the size you want. For the layout, once again, we can also choose the header spacing and also the footer spacing, and we can have line numbers on our page, and we can also have borders on the page. Once again, you get to play a little bit with this, and I suggest you do that. So I'm going to switch back to the margin, and I'm going to apply them. Now there is a slight problem here, and that's with the sizes. Remember, I just said this a moment ago, your printer may not be capable of printing in a specific area of the page. So it will come back. I'm going to click OK. It has accepted it. My printer actually can print in those particular areas. So if I go back here to the custom one more time, there we go. So it has accepted all of these margins, and you'll see the page now reflects that there's a very small margin on this one side, and on the other side a little bit larger margin. So I'm just going to modify this because I don't like the way it looks, and I'll take it up to, let's say, 8. But for the top, I think I'll put in a little bit extra space. We'll say 1.5 inch, because in many cases you'll have your header, your logo at the top. Now, we wouldn't see it in the diagram that we are looking at right now, but the page that we put in the printer is probably pre-printed. You've often seen these, and we're just adding content, so we have to make sure that there is space for that address and logo that would be at the top. So that's the way you set up custom margins. Now, remember, I've also suggested that you can modify those margins from the ruler as well. So if I had decided that I would like to change the margins here as well, I can do that simply by grabbing hold of that margin and simply dragging it across. And the same is true for the sides. I can actually change the amount of space that is available for the margin here. Now, in addition to that, if I click on File and I go to Print, in this particular area as well, I can also set custom margins. So custom margins here, once again, I can click on custom margins, and now we're dealing specifically with the printing option. So I can set those custom margins so that they affect my particular page. And of course, I can go in here and I can modify all of those different settings that are in here as well. So hopefully that helps a little bit for custom margins.